Good morning. Good morning to you all. Jeff Africa. Jeff Africa's Last Dance, the channel where we're falling to the awakened heart and living life through that open, awakened heart. So good morning to you. Listen, I've been noticing that the sun is different. That the sun seems different to me. There's something about it that's different. From what I know, and from what I've been told, that it is now connected to the galactic central sun, Alcyon. I think that's how you pronounce it, Alcyon. And Alcyon is transmitting new frequencies, new codes, new vibrations, even consciousness light to our sun, and that's transmitting it to us. So it is very, very important to get out in that sun. Now don't go out there, and we're heading toward summer. Don't go out there, at 12 or even, most days I'm out there at 11, 8:30, 9 o'clock after I swim. I'm out there 8:30, 9, doing a series of stretches right there facing the sun. And it is just with shorts on, no shirt, and shorts, no shoes. Feet on the ground, on Mother Earth, facing the sun, doing 30 minutes worth of stretches. After I get done swimming, or just when I'm walking, I stop. But it is incredibly important to get sun. Don't go out there before 10. Sometimes even that's too late in the summer when it's really blazing, or after 4. And you can feel your skin. Pay attention to your skin. You can feel your skin stressing out if the sun's too much. You don't really want that, especially if you're a white guy. I'm not. I'm an olive skin. My mom comes from Chile, so luckily enough, I have olive skin. If I had if I was totally white and I had the regimen I had when I was younger, swimming and being at the pool all the time and lifeguarding and all those outdoor activities, I would very well have contracted melanoma. I know some Swedish guys that did what I did and died with melanoma. So you got to be careful, and it is extremely important to get this sun onto your skin and into your body, because there's many, many gifts now that are coming through that are going to help us raise our vibrations with the sun. That is different now. It's shining differently. I can tell. I looked up one day and I go, that's different. And then I just was browsing YouTube, and this guy had this little video that said the sun seems different now. And I thought I was the only one to notice. And it is different. So you get out there and you get some sun. It's extremely important as we go through this process we're going through. Okay, now this is a very, very special video to my heart, and I hope I can get through it all, because it's very special to me. It's about a guy I know. It's about a guy I met in middle school now, but it was junior high school when we were in the 60s when we were going to school. And I met him. His name is Scott Mcmillan. I met him in 8th grade, 7th, 8th grade, middle school, and then we got into high school. And then we started hanging around more together. He really liked me. It was like we liked each other on sight. I thought a lot of him. He thought a lot of me. We just liked one another. He's probably one of my best friends in high school, we started to hang out a little bit in high school. He was kind of the leader of a little group we had, 4 or 5 people. He was the leader. He was the guy who would kind of centered around. He had the goods. He had a good nature, light heart, laughing all the time, ribbing, joking. I was sort of like the lone wolf. He took me in. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have really gotten along with the other guys, but because of him, I kind of could, he was the catalyst that helped me get along with the other people in the group, and they weren't bad guys, they were good guys. But I just, without him, it wouldn't have worked very well. So he was kind of the leader, and we all kind of revolved or partook because he made it happen. He really made it happen. It was that's how it progressed. That's how it proceeded. We played. Well, he was a swimmer too. We played water polo together. First 2 years, his freshman and sophomore year, we were both on the water polo team. He was just a great guy, and at that time, when I was a freshman in high school, I was kind of a sensitive sort of out of water sort of character, and I didn't know how to do a lot of things. If some guys, meaner guys, would start yelling at me from down the hallway, yelling names, that means, and how bullies would kind of be. They were kind of bullies, and they would start razzing me mean. He would come along, and I wouldn't know what to do. I didn't know how to defend myself in that situation, and he would come along. And he would just start yelling at them, doing the same thing to them that they were doing to me. And they would just kind of go away at that point. But he would stick up for me. One time out on the lawn, we were having lunch, and a guy grabbed my cookie and ate it. A peanut butter cookie. It was a big deal back then. And I was mad. So I got up and I punched him in the face. And he took me aside one time. He said, "Jeff, you're too good to be punching people in the face. This isn't really who you are. You shouldn't be, you got to think about that. You're too good to be punching people. You're going to be your way." And I kind of said, well, he shouldn't have, kind of defended my action. But he was 100% right. He was a friend in that way. He would tell you things that, maybe you didn't want to hear, but he thought in his consciousness that he needed to say it, and that's how he's a leader that way, and so he took me under his wing, and I was, like I say, a kind of a loner, and he made me part of the gang. When we were walking along, they would be up there walking, fast all together, talking, and I'd kind of be dragging behind to 10 feet, and he'd turn around and he'd go, "Come on, Jeff, you're walking like a," I won't say what he said, it was a different time, but even that was sort of a cherish. I even cherish even those types of times, but he was right in there, right? Many times, driving in the backseat of a car. And he'd be in the front seat, laughing it up and stuff, and I'd be watching him carry on, and I would think, God, I wish I was as good as he was at this. Such a natural at being with people and laughing, and I would sit back there going, just look at him, going, God, I wish I was as easy as he was. And funnily enough, I never got jealous. I was never jealous of this guy. It just didn't enter my head. I wasn't envious of him either. I was just thinking, God, I wish I was as good as he was at this. He truly was. He really was good at that. Summer nights, they would come late at night, 11:30 or something, and him and a bunch of his friends, four of his friends or so, they would come and they'd honk out my window. So I'd get up, look out the window, and there they'd be in a car. So I'd get get dressed and sneak out the back door and come around and jump in the car, and we go out to do something, to bowling alley, or just someplace, or a drive-in, get a snack, or whatever it might have been. And then they would bring me back. It was like I say, he made me feel part of something, part of the gang, and I'll never forget him for that. Okay, I'll always love him for that. He moved, and now after sophomore year, he moved to Texas. his family picked up and moved to Texas. And, we said goodbye, and that was the last I saw him up for a while. But would think of him occasionally and stuff like that. In my senior year, I was at a 7-Eleven. I looked across the way, and there was an Elks Club, and on the roof was white rock, and it was next to a big chimney. And I was thinking, I go, wow, man, because I could grow a pot plant up there because of the reflection of how I knew pot plants love light, and the reflection off the rock, the white rock. And then the sun coming down, I go, that'd be a perfect place to grow a pot plant. You know what I mean? So I got some seeds, put them in a little pottery thing, and snuck up there one night and put that next to a chimney, and so it would grow. It was kind of secluded, and no one really saw it. And I would kind of keep my eye on it, and eventually it got about 3 feet tall, 3.5 feet tall. So me and a friend went to get it, and then we were going to transfer it out in the orchard. He lived next to an orchard. We were going to transfer it, plant it in there, and let it grow. But we got caught. Okay, we just got caught. We were talking to the guy, trying to talk our way out of it. And in the meantime, another Elks Club guy called the cops, and they pulled up. Okay, so we got arrested for it. This is in '71. It wasn't it wasn't like it is now. It was kind of serious. You didn't want to get caught with pot. So my dad worked out a deal where if I joined the Air Force, this is, like I say, in '71, if I joined the Air Force, they would drop the charges. And, I go, join the Air Force, what am I going to, so I said, okay. I was a kid, I didn't know what. My dad kept goading me to do it, and I said, fine. So I went down to Lackland Air Force Base in Texas, served 2 weeks, was kind of not quite what they wanted to see, so they put me back to day one. Usually it's 30 days basic training. So then I went back to day one, and then went through another 2 weeks. And I didn't do, I just wasn't a military personality. I'm, a military type personality, and they were having trouble with that. So another 2 weeks, and on that day 15, they said, look, we're going to take you in for a drug interview. And we're asking some questions, and we just want you to tell us the truth. So I did. They said, have you ever taken LSD? And at the time, yeah, I'd taken LSD. So I said, yeah, I've taken LSD. So they gave me an honorable discharge. I guess they just didn't want people who had taken that drug, which is telling, I'd taken it, but it's not for everyone. But I had some very interesting experiences on it. But it was, it was a dicey thing to do. And they didn't want people who had been under the influence of that drug, so they honorably discharged me. And I said, gee, now that I'm honorably discharged, I didn't mind. I wanted to be out in life. I didn't want to be, the Air Force wasn't bad though, I gotta say. But the chance of being out in life was fine as far as I'm concerned. So he was living outside Dallas at that point. So I called him at that point. I go, might as well go see Scott. So I called him, and I said, look, I can go to Dallas Airport from Lackland. It was San Antonio. Why don't you come and pick me up? Let's hang out for a while. So I did. I got out of the plane out there in the pickup area, and he drove up. Here he comes, little fresh-faced kid in a souped-up orange VW at the time. And glad to see me. I was glad to see him. So I stayed in his house for a couple weeks, I think, probably. And his parents didn't really, were wondering what was going on at that point. And his parents didn't particularly like me. This is another thing. He goes, my parents, they don't particularly like you all that much. I go, your parents don't like me? Like that, like I was in that kind of a vein. And he looked at me and said, don't worry about that, Jeff. My parents, how parents are. They don't know what they're doing. It doesn't matter if they like you or not. The better guy you are sometimes, the less they like you. Or the more dynamic guy you are, the less they like you. It's kind of a thing. You know how parents are. They can be like that. So we moved, me and him moved out of the house, and we moved in together in this apartment. And kind of just hung around. I got a couple of different jobs. We'd just kind of do what two guys did at that point, which is just partying, smoking pot, drinking beer, just living kind of an easy life before we had to get serious about life. It was good. It was fun. It was a great experience to have. He had a girlfriend named Vicky, nice Texas woman. You know, they had pretty Texas women. Pretty. What I noticed, and this is kind of a culture issue, in San Francisco, the Bay Area where I was, it was just out of the hippie era, and you know, the look was a natural sort of look, not a lot of makeup, straight, natural hair, not letting it flow, which is my preferred way. In Texas, it was a little bit different. You know, they had a lot of makeup on, more, and more hairspray in their hair, shaped their hair. And it was just interesting to note that difference between California and Texas. They were a little bit different women, and but at the same time, they were really pretty. So he had a nice, beautiful girlfriend, good natured. I really liked her, especially as I got to know her. I liked her more and more. One time we went to see the Who. Okay, they were in town. We went to an arena to go see the Who. We got separated. We couldn't get all tickets together, so I was separated from them, and I was sitting in the middle of the arena, sort of. There were a lot of seats on the other side, now in California. I've been to Fillmore West, the Winterland, Pepperland, all these places to see groups. You just, you smoke pot. Once the group started, everybody sparked up a joint. You smoked. You had to be careful. It was still illegal, but you could get away with it. Now, it's interesting in Texas. They had Texas Rangers going up the alleyways, and you don't want to miss with Texas Rangers. They're a unique brand of law enforcement and justice. You know what I mean? And so I kind of waited for the interval for them to kind of walk down, and I lit up a joint, and everybody around me freaked out. They're going, put it out. I kept smoking it, and then at some point I put it out. But it was such a big place, and the Rangers are so far away. It's going to take a long time before they smelled that pot, and they're never going to know who lit that joint. You know what I mean? But that was a difference between California and Texas. It was things that you did in California, you just did not do in Texas. There's only one guy I noticed there who looked back at me and kind of gave me a nod of approval, saying, "Yeah, that's kind of a cool dude," But that was it. It was a risky thing to do. But that was sort of the difference between California and Texas. So we were just hanging out. And it was just fun. For 8 months, we kind of hung out and just did normal stuff. We were both 18 years old at the time, and then he decided to marry Vicky, and I left. I said, at that point I go, well, I guess I got to go back to California then, and I sort of left at that point, and I always regretted not staying there and seeing him through his wedding. I was kind of being an asshole. An inconsiderate asshole. I should have. I forget. He was a couple months away or a month away or whatever. I should have stayed there. He probably would have chosen me as his best man. Maybe not, but likely, highly likely. And I would have been honored to be his best man during his wedding. But I left before the wedding, and I always regretted that. I should have stayed and seen him through his wedding. That's how much he meant to me. And I was kind of being an asshole about it. Maybe I was kind of maybe mad that I wanted to hang around and maybe hang out a little, another 4 or 5 months before he decided to do something like that. So he got married, and I went back to my house, living with my parents for about 2 weeks. Me and my dad. As a guy, once you get out of that house and you start living on your own. Is extremely difficult, especially with the father I had. He was a big monster, and it just didn't work anymore. So I stayed 2 weeks in my house, and then walked out. Just walked out, and I had about couple $100. I had a car, and just walked out and started living my life. and crashed and burned. It wasn't because of that. I'll tell you a story some other time, but kind of crashed and burned. And it was a eye-opening experience for some reason, and it was a very interesting story. I'll tell you about that some other time. He married Vicky. He got some corporate job, which was a mistake as far as I was concerned. He was too big to be in a corporation. And for me, I always thought, I don't fit in corporations. I told you this before. I don't fit in the corporate world, the corporate life. There's just no room for me. I'll never go to work for a corporation. And as I projected, if I ever met a woman, had a family, had kids, I would never ever want the welfare, the financial welfare of my family become dependent upon a corporation for that. Okay, it just isn't a good mix. Joining the corporation in a way it's like joining the mob. It really is. You're going to be forced to do a lot of things you don't want to do. You're going to be forced to take seriously things that simply aren't that serious, and the consciousness level isn't what, now there could be a couple of corporations in this country that I might have fit into, more of enlightened attitudes and stuff like that, but it just never would have worked for me in corporations. I'd never want the welfare of my family, of me dependent upon me working in that corporation, because they got you by the throat then, and you're going to be doing a lot of things that you don't want to do, and it was just out of the question. I just remained a wandering chef. That was my way of staying out of the that type of life. I didn't want to be connected to everything. I was just I'm still a lone wolf. Lone wolf personality. So that's how things lined up. Okay, now, and not too long ago, a few months ago, I had a dream about him. I remember sitting in a chair, and there he was in the room. It was kind of a party. He was animatedly talking to someone, looking good, looking sharp. And I go, Scott, and I know I'm bursting with pride of having such a fine friend. I go, now there is one guy that was my true friend through life, and they're rare. This is true friends are rare, and he was one. And it was curious, because I know that's very unusual for me to do something like that. Then I had another dream about him, that I was walking down the hallway, and him and Vicky were in their living room, and I walked into the living room and I couldn't talk. I couldn't say anything. I tried to say something and I just couldn't talk. And then I woke up, and that was interesting. So I looked up the universe and I said, I don't know what this is all about, but if you want me to get in touch with Scott, put him in my dream one more time, and I'll take that as a message that I should give him a call. So I did see him again. His face kind of went through a dream I was having. I said, okay. So I looked up his number on the computer, Scott Mcmillan, Scott David Mcmillan, 71 Plano, Texas. That's where he lived. And his number came up. You got to sort through it, but that's how you can get to anybody these days. It's kind of trippy. So I called him, and it took me a while. He took me a while to actually. He wouldn't pick up the phone. He knew. I left him a message a couple of times. He knew it was me, but he wouldn't pick up the phone. So that was kind of a tell about the situation. And then finally, I kind of did it in a loud, aggressive way. Probably freaked him out a little bit. And I kind of called him a couple of times to make sure I had the right number. But he finally did text me and said, Jeff, this is Scott. Give me a call. And so I called him back, and I could tell right away that he really was, he wasn't the same guy that I knew with all his stuff working, okay? He had what happened to him is what happened to a lot of guys. When they get older, they get to be a lesser version of themselves, and they get beaten to shit by life. From his vocal tones, at one point he said, how the hell, what I said to my wife is, how the hell did he get this number? The guy I've just told you about with this friendship we had, that's what he said. You know, he said, how the hell did he get my number? You know what I mean? So that tells you, that's a lot of information in that attitude. It wasn't quite what I was expecting, but I was open to whatever I came across. You know, I wasn't thinking that it had to be any particular way. But I could tell he was rolled by life. It was like life took him by the ankles, upside down, shook him, everything out of his pockets, threw him down the side, picked up everything he had, and walked off. That's what the impression I got that what happened to my friend Scott Mcmillan, that he was rolled by life. He had a corporate job that I'm sure he did a lot of things he didn't want to do, said a lot of things he didn't want to not say a lot of things he should have said. And copped to a lot of things. It just wasn't like him. It was a mistake. But he had a family. You know, he got married to Vicky. They started having kids, and man, you're in at that point. And so he was, you know, that's where he was. But his bread was being buttered, and he had to toe the line. And for that and other reasons, we were both 71 now. So we're both 71. You know, he wasn't quite the same guy. He was hurt. He's hurt now. He was embittered by life. He was disillusioned by life, disgruntled by life. He was kind of like a Scrooge in a way. And I wanted to say, you're going to be visited by 3 spirits in the course of this evening. Because he was a little bit Scroogey, and not the same person that I had known, and he doesn't remember me. You know, the conversation that we had was a good, okay conversation, but in no way does he really remember what I'm telling you now, what I remember, how things were between us. Okay, he doesn't remember that. Okay, he doesn't know. I don't know if he knows he remember. You know, it was very apparent to me that he was very unhappy with his life and how it turned out. It didn't turn out anything like he thought it would. And things just didn't work out in a lot of different ways. And it was apparent when I had talked to him. So, as I have thought about it since, I said at the end, I go, look, do you want to keep in touch or what? He goes, well, I guess so, you know, that kind of a thing. And I gave him my number, and I thought, well, let's try this and see if it works. It doesn't pay generally to go back in a way, and this is kind of an example of it. So I called him December 24th before Christmas, and I said, you know, he had a lot of kids. He had 2 kids. Those 2 kids had some kids, and they had some kids, so he had a lot of family around him. And I called him the 24th. I said, look, I wanted to say, wish you a happy Christmas. We better do it now. Merry Christmas. Better do it now because you're going to be busy, awfully busy tomorrow. And I said, so call me back. I just told him a second. I just want to say happy Merry Christmas. And he never called. You know, so that was it. You know, he asked me, look, if you call me, call once and don't call me. I'll call you back. You know, he's fairly, you know, he's that way now. So I said, okay, fine, you know, so I couldn't really call him back. I gave him my word that I would follow his lead on that. So now I'm thinking, that's my friend. You know, he's been hurt by life, and he is not fully himself right now, and doesn't have all this stuff working right now, which is common. Guys, a lot of guys don't age well. I got to wind this up. A lot of guys don't age well. You know what I mean? I've noticed that women age better than guys. Guys get to be in their 70s and 80s, get to be a smaller version of themselves, and it's something have to do with masculinity. Another good video, we could discuss that. But we've got to end that. You know what I mean? When guys' wives die, they don't know what to do with themselves. The wives are still getting along in life. They're interacting. They go to different events with other wives, and they seem to be doing better than guys. That's an interesting thing to consider, and we have to change that as guys. You know, I'm not that way. And when I was early on, I said I am not going to end up that way. You know, I'm not going to be like these guys I'm seeing when they get old. I'm not going to do that. And, you know, I can say I successfully haven't. But I've had a tougher life I had a tough life for 40 years. Something I've told you about. I wish I had more time to get into it, but we don't. So, at this point, and I'm thinking, what could I say to my friend? what could I give him in the way, not in the way of helping him. He wouldn't like that. I'm going to help Scott. No. But what could I advise him? What advice could I give him to help him right now recover some of what he's lost? It's not gone. It's covered up. He's like the king in Twin Towers. Remember that? Some bad sorcerer